Welcome to the Midwest Moguls Show, where we talk all things business, real estate, and entrepreneurship. Let's dive into today's episode and make business enjoyable again. Welcome back to the Midwest Moguls Show. We have Heavy D, Big J, and Joe in the podcast studio today. So we are diving into, we were just talking prior to this, the creation of content. I know we discussed that with Derek the last time. Derek, I'm still waiting for that podcast or videos to come out. I haven't seen anything on your side of things, but I don't know. I'll just keep waiting on that because there might be a delay.
The content king.
The content king, Heavy D.
Closer. Be closer.
Yeah, pull it up towards your face. So now we were talking about prior to the podcast starting, like creating content and then owners watching the content, so on and so forth. But what I've started doing with owners, and I was talking to Cam about it yesterday, is I've literally been walking owners through exactly how we're arriving at price. So I'm like, we need to make this percent margin. Like, this is kind of what's going on. I said, if this works, great. And I'm doing this all over the phone prior to even going out there. So then you're not wasting a shit ton of time driving 30 minutes, whatever, walking through the thing. And then I've just been quoting prices over the phone. And it seems to be working out well.
I've been doing that, like at least giving a ballpark, you're saying? Or do you like
I'm damn near at the price. Because it's like, so my range, I'll give a recent example. So I'm going down to Milwaukee on Thursday, and I ran through all the numbers. Yeah, it's a pretty decent area, actually, not bad. It's probably like a C minus.
Oh, so it's a Milwaukee C minus.
Yeah, exactly.
Milwaukee C minus.
It is the worst place there is.
But no, it's a very solid rental neighborhood. Like, values are, they're not extremely high. But I told her, I ran through all the numbers. I'm like, we're probably between whatever 40 to 50 grand on the place. I said, if that's something of interest, let me know. If it's not something of interest, I'm not going to waste your time. But it's like a $10,000 increment because I'm just running through all the worst case scenarios. For those, I've been building in a lot larger margin. Because I'm like, if we're going to be driving down at least to look at it, I want to make sure we can make 10, 15, 20 on a wholesale without having to really worry about it. And the more I've been doing it, maybe you're losing out on some deals, but I don't know if you're necessarily losing out because you're just being transparent with the owner, so you're not surprising them while you're there. Because, like, say you're like, hey, I'm going to be between, if I would have given in this case, I'm going to be between 40 to 70. They're thinking 70 right off the top. But 40 to 50 is still a good price, but you can kind of come in somewhere in that range. And then if there's bigger issues or whatever the case is, then of course you can renegotiate. But
yeah, I kind of set someone up with that. You're
good.
That kind of a sad situation. Guy had gotten scammed. He has no money. He can't afford to be there. But he has money in equity. But the place has some work to be done. It's just like it's in that situation. So you're going to have the same issue whether it goes on market or not. Kind of phase it to him in two different ways of, hey, we can list it. I can get you everything, whatever, but we had to know exactly what his payoffs were just to get a better idea, just to make sure there wasn't something hiding. Or I could do it, basically a cash offer and kind of walked him through just the details of it. And because he has so much, he has 43 years worth of stuff in that house. It's not a hoarder, but it's just
you have a lot of stuff after 43 years.
And just kind of going through that aspect of it, and I like just asking him, hey, take out everything for what's going to be, involved with the sale, paying off the loan, the closing, anything with that. What would you want? What would be your ideal to make? And, he spits out a number and he's like, now I know that's usually where it ends up being is if I give you a number. And I'm like, okay, I think I can get him a little bit more.
Yeah, correct.
It's going to hit. And I told him, I'm like, I do buy them, but like he had said, I do it. I need to make money. This is where that comes in, but I'm putting in all the work because he doesn't have 40, 50 grand to go into stuff between financing costs,
everything.
You obviously
everything
know how that works, but it's like with having all of that in it and it's just up front. Hey, I need to figure out a couple of things with it. Because he mentioned like he has 2 loans. Well, we found the one and we can't find the other. So I don't think it was ever
that loan shark.
I don't think it was ever recorded. And then we found, ended up finding it. Guy got $100,000 loan with $9,000 of closing costs.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
Like what was
national?
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Do we screw them and how?
Yeah.
I think it was that company.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just like ridiculous. But he's been on like forbearance for 7 months.
Yeah.
And then they keep racking up the
Yeah,
added
exactly.
costs on it and added. So, whatever. He figured it out. And then this guy, I'm pretty sure, is also in the process of getting scammed again. I'm trying to tell him to not do that, but I can't control his life. So he thought Mark Zuckerberg's cousin was flying to fly him over to the Philippines to pick up his American girlfriend that was stationed in Europe in the army, but she was having a hard time getting back here. So she went to the Philippines.
Oh, man, that's just sad.
People
want stuff to believe in.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
It's like your
guy's
story,
just lonely.
Carter.
The hope.
He's a lonely old man, and I'm like trying to delicately go like, I don't. I
know.
think it's. I don't think it's legit. But.
That's a touchy situation because we've dealt with those in the past, and we've seen people first-handedly get scammed, and we know that it's a scam, but it's.
Are you in the right to tell the people?
Yeah, how would you put it delicately?
Yeah.
You're not really at that friendly level maybe with them where you can be like, dude, you're making a huge mistake. You don't want to, I guess, come across as an asshole, but at the same time, I don't know, you kind of need to tell them some sort of way, but how do you go about that?
Yeah,
it's also like when your friend gets a chick.
Yeah.
Gets a new girlfriend.
New girlfriend.
And,
she's the worst.
You know the track record. You know all the stuff behind the scenes. They're like, oh, she's the best.
Yeah.
Then you're like, dude, do I tell him?
Yeah. She's not the one.
Yeah.
It was funny because this guy, he was showing me around the house, and it's like 2,400 square feet. So it's
so it's a big place.
Oh gosh,
damn.
yeah. But goes downstairs and it goes into being delicate with things because he's like, yeah, check out my gun safe. I want you to see what's in there. I'm like, this is how I get shot.
Yeah,
this is how it's going to end.
He's going into the
75-year-old guy's
dungeon with an old dude.
He's going to extort Derek for extra money. He's like, what did you say, 150?
Yeah.
It's looking more like 175.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's sad what you come up with, but I asked the guy, I'm like, even if financially you could stay here, does it make sense for you to stay here? And he said, no, it's just
not a
too
single
much
dude.
houses.
Exactly.
Whatever, but.
And there's so many more pain points behind the scenes that I think a lot of people fail to uncover, and then thus creating that, there's the financial barrier that you always have to overcome, whether your price is too low or whatever the scenario might be. But then there's the actual getting them to take action, because even finances might make perfect sense to them, but that stepping stone from, hey, we're in agreement to signing the actual purchase agreement is that's another barrier. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on, because we have a scenario right now, the guy, this has been going on for months. He said, okay, I'll take the offer, dropped an offer off at his house. He's like, oh, okay, I'll go over it and then whatever. Then he didn't hear from him for 4 weeks. He's in foreclosure. Then he just reached out 2 weeks ago. He's like, hey, I'll just send that over to my email. I'll electronically sign it. I'm like, okay. Yeah, are you sure you don't want me to drop it off, sign it with you in person? Nope. Haven't heard anything. 2 weeks later.
Seriously.
I'm like, I don't even know. In this case, it's people just kind of put their head in the sand and then hope for the best is what I'm assuming. But
I feel like he's holding on to that as a safety net.
Yeah.
So when, time does come to push and he has to sign something, then, he's going to be like, okay, it's finally here. He signs it, sends it back. And you'll be like, dude, we're not buying anymore.
Exactly.
We totally forgot that we even sent this to you.
Yeah, I should avoid the DocuSign now.
You probably should. Just so then at least he would reach out to you before making any sort of signatures and assuming that then we're buying it.
Yeah.
Because that can always be, it's been out there for over a month now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a long, long time in the making.
Do you guys put time limits on any of your deals, or do you generally just, hey, here's the offer, get it back to us whenever you?
Well, I create the sense of urgency is kind of the components, hey, we don't have unlimited amounts of money. So if we wait, we're still interested in the place regardless, because I don't want to lose a deal because they thought that we didn't want to buy it anymore. But I just tell them, it's if you want this done sooner rather than later, then obviously this is an urgent thing that we need to put money aside for. However, if it's going to be 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, then we will probably have to rearrange things on our side to still be able to purchase it in a timely manner. And that's not in a way that hey, this is going to take another 30, 60, 90 days, but I'm just upfront and telling them, It's like, and that's rightfully so. No one has an unlimited amount of money. So you can kind of use that to.
How much time do you usually, if someone says like, oh, how much time do I have to sign this document? You tell them.
I would say, well, Joe, I would like you to sign it sooner rather than later. And in like a joking manner, I'm smiling when I say it. But I said, I understand that you want to probably talk through things, think through things, make sure you have everything lined up. So if you need a little bit of time to make that decision, that's totally fine. But on our side, what I'll do, I won't set any money aside for the property right now. So timeframes could change if it takes you a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to make a decision. So then it kind of creates that, like, if they would call back in a week and it's like, hey, can we move forward with this? Like, well, that initial time frame that we're talking about, it would have to be about 2 weeks later.
Right.
And then you can kind of use that as a negotiation tactic or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. And I feel like you're letting them know, like, hey, I haven't set any money aside yet.
Yep.
Like that shows that it's not just us waiting on their signature. Like, we also have money that we'll have to put aside. So we have to know in a
correct
manner.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's a lot more kind than the gave an offer to a guy and just, this expires in 15 minutes, so you better think quick.
Yeah, it's like a briefcase with a bomb in it.
But some people do. It's like more of a, like they come to the property, and I know there's sales trainings on. It's like, hey, if we come out, can we like come together on a decision right away?
Yeah,
and
we've said that in the past, and we still kind of use
and you
that.
Still abide by it, but there's certain scenarios, and you can feel this when you're in the house, when you're talking to them, that they're not ready to commit. And truthfully speaking, I don't know anyone who likes to make, especially when it comes to a house, like very, very spontaneous decisions of like, hey, I'm signing this, whatever, because they have, first off, they're thinking about if they're living there, where am I going to move to next? Do I have that lined up? Do I not? People who have it lined up tend to make a decision a little bit quicker, but the ones who don't are a little bit more hesitant to jump on it.
Yeah.
So I always
3 months.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And I always take it a little bit more careful in those situations, because what I found is you're not going to get the contract signed one way or another. And then if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, then that's going to make them not want to do business with you, because you're just a pushy salesperson.
It's really having, like the multiple different techniques or avenues, within picking it up. Because that's something that I've gotten a little bit better on. Is usually I've been more of the, like, just kind of, hey, I'm all right with your timeline. I don't want to pressure you, whatever. But there's certain cases where it's like, you gotta just give a little bit more of, hey, if it's not within this time frame, I can't guarantee anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I understand you gotta look at it, like you had said. If it's outside of, over XYZ days, I can't guarantee that's something, because we're looking at multiple different things.
Correct.
Might not be able to do it.
Yeah.
That's an extreme part of the value that you guys create, though, in your business, to think about, like, you're getting the house at a discount for a reason, and that's generally because it benefits the owner of selling it on their time frame or doing it at their discretion, right? It's not like they're openly putting their house on the market and saying, I'll take the first offer that I get on it. And I really appreciate that, too, with you guys just being transparent. And, like, how many guys will go and get on a phone call and say, I'll give you $70,000, and they get to the house, I'm really thinking 45.
Yeah.
Not only is that a bad reflection on the industry of, like, hey, you're trying to get one past someone.
Yep.
Number two, it's like, hey, having the respectful conversation and saying, like, you know what, hey, there might be someone out there that's willing to pay more. Here's where I'm at. Here's what we can do, and this is the service that we have. We've got a good track record, and if it works for you, great. If not, we're not.
Yeah, and you're not wasting your own time.
Yeah,
like that's what I've come to value even more of. Like, especially if you're driving a long distance.
Yeah,
like I was talking to a guy yesterday, and I'm like, okay, say the place is worth, and we were discussing, say the place is worth $190. I said, I'm going to have to subtract off whatever, 5, 6, 7% for closing costs and commissions and everything like that. So we arrive at like 150 something or 170 something, sorry. Then I said, we need to make at least 10%. I said, ideally, we'd like to make between 15 to 20, but at least 10% if everything's done. So I said, we subtract off that amount. It arrives us at a 160 purchase price. I said, is that something that you could even work with? He's like, well, I already have a offer for a little bit higher. I'm like, perfect. I said, I would probably recommend, knowing what I know, it sounds like a decent offer. It doesn't do me any favors on telling you this, but I would probably take that if I was you and you want a direct sale. I said, we're not wasting my time. I'm not wasting your time. There's no point in me coming out, because this is roughly where our numbers are going to be at. And then it was a cordial conversation. You're not burning any bridges doing that because you're just like, people are seeking the truth. And I think the more people try to hide that or hold it close to their chest, like you're not doing anyone any favors in doing that. Like you might think, okay, in the short term, I might have some killer deals and make some huge profits, and rightfully so. But in the long term, it's like, well, yeah, so-and-so took advantage of me. Like they didn't give me all the information that I truthfully wanted. And then there's the ethical side of things as well. But
yeah,
real estate's got a lot of that too, where there's people that are not, especially like in the wholesale space. I think, there's people who they use their advantage or knowledge to get one passed on homeowners. Like I've seen a lot of deals where I'm like, why are you making a $50,000 wholesale assignment spread on a deal on a house that doesn't need much?
Yeah.
And I think like there's a balance, of course, because it does create value to the market, right?
Yeah.
It creates more tax base. It creates a better home. You can, all this stuff, right? But I think it goes both ways too, like running a business that is ethical and that you're creating value and that you're not just a transactional service, right? Like, oh yeah, you want everyone to leave an interaction with you and be like, dude, these guys are, even if you don't do a deal, I respect Carter and Joe for the business that they're running. And
well, and it's like an ethical negotiation, essentially is what it is.
Right.
Because you're not trying to hide something from them. They probably know the house a little bit better than we would know the house just from walking in there. So it's like, hey, having the conversation about, the basement's fucked. Like this is going to be extremely, extremely costly. The more money we have to stick into the remodel, the more we have to make on the backside because the risk involved or the perceived risk. So if they're aware of that, then it's like, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like I wouldn't expect anything less in that scenario. It's like, hey, Josh, would you stick in whatever, $100,000 into a remodel and only make $5,000 in return? Probably not, because the risk is not there. Like you're better off putting your money elsewhere. So I think the more you can have those conversations with owners, and I'm speaking from a place of having multiple or having dozens and dozens of conversations, that it's like, to me, I have the confidence to do it. I know some people might lack that, especially starting off. It's like, well, I don't know my numbers. So I don't know if I want to tell an owner something that I probably shouldn't, or whatever the case is.
Right.
But how do you guys think like the sales process or like an ethical negotiation should go? Like, do you always try to drive out price from an owner first, or what has been your experience with that? Anyone at the table?
Every time I've bought something, I've almost every single time bought something, I've either paid exactly what they've wanted, or I've had a justifiable way to make sense of it, right? I would say 90% of the stuff that I've bought, I've actually bought at their price.
Okay.
Because it's just sifting through the deals that make sense. And it's like the people that are for sure going to sell, they're on the same level of transparency with you. They'll tell you their story. They're not holding back. Oh, I have all these tax issues with it, or there's some other underlying issues. Nope. Like let's establish that relationship prior, so then we can have a legit conversation, like between any one of us. If we had said, hey, Carter, I own a rental that I want to sell. Here's the few issues with it. Here's what I think is good about it. Would you be interested? And like establishing that rapport with people, I think has been huge to just get deals, at the right price, and not to leave the room feeling like, oh, I got fucked by either the seller or the seller gets screwed by you. You know?
Yeah. And that's kind of like for me is, just figure out what they want.
Yeah.
Because then I can communicate it in a way of, hey, I have to, run the number, make sure that everything's good, just confirm, whatever, and do what I can to make sure that we can do that for it. Unless there's something outstanding that, you got to go down with it.
Correct.
And then, it's like, again, most recent one, still working on that because maybe he's in the Philippines or gone. But is, okay, you want to clear 100,000 over because that you have some other debts to pay off, and that's going to leave you with some money to kind of go for your next. All right. Well, now I know kind of the baseline for it. See if I can go get him a little bit more. Because as long as I still hit my numbers, which it's going to be, say my exit, whatever that number is. I have like a base projection where I know I can get this. Unless the market collapses. And then I have a range where I think it could end up going, if stuff hits right, because that leaves, leaves a good amount, which is basically, for example, on this one would be probably about 10 to 12% for a margin, but it could go up. But it's like, again, you just kind of explain it in a way of, I'm going to do what I can to get you that. And I think that's been pretty successful. I mean, the first one that we did, knew what they were at, and I think we got like 5 off or something like that from what it was, but we knew that we would have, when it was our first one, we were trying to open up as much as we could for wiggle room, which there were various things that, that got added in, but it's like, just kind of go in, hey, I'm not going to try to, I think we paid $115 and they wanted $120.
Yeah, so that's
not much.
It's not bad.
We're not going to try to hit you down to 100 because we know we can make it work, but we just need a little bit more flexibility on whatever. Does that work for you? It was a little, I think that'd be fine.
Yeah.
So, similar to what you had said to start, Carter, too. Sorry to.
No, you're good.
So when we had that conversation with the owner there, we literally said that to her. We're like, hey, this is where we're at. We're at 115, right? We're not going to come here and waste your time and say, let's do 100 or haggle.
Yeah.
I think that's a big mistake people make too, is they sit there and they screw around trying to like beat the brakes off people. In person. It's like, dude, let's have a respectful conversation. Everyone put everything out in the open. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I think one of the greatest negotiation tactics, it's not even a tactic, but it's how I look at everything. Have you ever seen one of those movies where there's a boardroom and they're doing a huge merger? There's like 30 people around the table. Yep. You got to be the person that's willing to walk out of that room anytime. Yep. You got to be willing to walk. And if you're like, people understand that, hey, this is my number at 115 or 150. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I'm if it doesn't work for you, it's cool.
That's exactly.
Go seek out what you need to seek out. But when people get that feeling from you that like, oh,
this is serious.
They're legit. They're being transparent. They can't pay anymore. Let's do the deal. Yep. It gives people that certainty to know that you're not.
Well, and that they didn't leave money on the table.
Yeah.
Like that's another huge component. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, kind of going back with what Carter said is, the way that I go about like having the initial like phone calls and everything like that, usually I'm just figuring out, okay, what's the condition of the property and where their motivation is. And if the motivation is at a high level, obviously price is going to become a factor, but it's not as much of a factor, I think, initially, like talking with them. Usually they'll be more, I guess, understandable of, okay, this is the price that they're at, and are willing to be realistic on that price. I usually wait to, I would say wait to talk about price till the very end of a phone call or at the very end of like a walkthrough and everything like that. But it just seems like sometimes if you get held up on, okay, so what price are you looking to get right away? And they're like, oh, I want like 150. Yeah. Obviously maybe that number might not work out, but their motivation is really high. I feel like it still might be worth, going on
for
those
sure.
walkthroughs.
For sure.
Now, if it's a far distance, obviously run the numbers and give them a better idea on where we would be at. But it's definitely something that, I mean, I've gone on plenty of walkthroughs. I'm sure all of you guys have, where they say a high number, you still go on a walkthrough, and usually they're like, okay, drop basically like 50,000. They're at 100 now. Yeah. After looking at it, I find that to be very, I guess, very much like common when it comes to like a lot of landlords when they haven't seen the property in a long time. Usually they think, okay, I could get this high number. But after going in the property, maybe they haven't seen it in a while, and they're like, holy shit. Like,
they're discouraged.
Yeah, this property's in shambles.
I need to sell this for whatever I can get.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly. Now they're like sweating. They're like, fuck, I need to I'll take whatever you offer, basically.
Yeah, they go there thinking, I want to sell, and they leave saying, I need to sell this.
And I've had that happen even on properties of ours. And I'm like, oh fuck, I just hope this person buys it. Like that's literally the thought pattern going through my mind. It's like, okay, you're stuck on price. Then you go out there and then you see it's like, oh God, this isn't as nice as it's what it once used to be. And then you're just hoping someone will purchase it. Right. And even if you take a little bit of a discount on price or whatever the case is, it's like, you want that. Everyone wants certainty when it comes to the decision-making process because it makes everything that much easier. And most people are willing to sacrifice a little bit on price as long as they can get that. But it's now, see, it's like, okay, in negotiations, a lot of the time, what I've found is owners don't want to name their price first, that makes sense. Okay, I get that fully. Do you keep beating into them until they will give you a price, or do you just come out and name a price first, or what has been the luck on that side for you guys at least?
Good question.
I mean, I usually hold off on beating the person until
you never know. You never know. I know you operate a little bit different style business.
So. Hey, he's got connections out east.
He does.
I know for me personally, usually I try a couple different ways of asking the same kind of question.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what price do you guys, want to get? If they don't give it to me the first time, usually I go into, okay, is there any taxes, liens, mortgage that need to get paid off? After figuring out, say it's, 100,000 is basically what's still owed on the property. Next question becomes, so how much are you looking to walk away with?
Yeah.
Like, are you trying to make, after paying that 100,000, you try and make 20, 30, 40, whatever that is. And usually a lot of homeowners will give out that information. I'm like, okay, so it sounds like you're at, 120, 130. Does that sound about correct? And
that's
more
fair.
times than not, they're like, actually, that does sound correct.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it might just be the homeowners literally just don't know
correct
what's a reasonable price. So kind of walking them through that step, I found to get, I guess, a number out of them a lot easier, and they come to realization, okay, that's actually a more of a realistic, price, because I don't need to go. They're looking at it as, okay, I don't need to get a slam dunk deal. The pain is there. I just need to move out. I need to get what I need, price wise, and if that company can do it, I'll sell it at that price.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's like going through and asking a series of questions too. Not like you're going to have always the same questions, but you can go through and understand basically after spending 15, 20 minutes with someone, do they actually not know the price, or do they know an idea
roughly
of the price,
what they want?
They're holding back a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to say, okay, what have you seen around here? I'm sure the neighbors talk, have you heard of any prices? Well, I'm thinking so-and-so got, 170 over there. I'm thinking it's probably needs a little work. It's worth 150, 140.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we've established somewhat of an expectation that they're looking for. Doesn't mean it's what we can come to.
Correct.
But
correct. Yeah, that's interesting. Normally I just shoot from the hip. I've gotten to the point, I'm not even, I guess it depends on, because the lead type that they normally fill out the form, which has a price expectation.
That helps a lot.
So that does drastically help. But then I'm normally just shut them down, not necessarily in a bad way on the phone. It's like, hey, I saw you want between 150 to 170 for your house. We could definitely not pay that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm just straight up with them. I'm like, realistically, where we would probably be at is closer to this range.
Mm-hmm.
I said, is that something that would even be of consideration?
Yes,
Maybe.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, well then I think the best route for you to go would be this, or why don't we set up a time to come out and take a look at it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it does depend on the lead type, or if I'm even in front of the computer, because otherwise, normally what I do is just quick. Honestly, if you're looking at Zillow, maybe Zillow value might be a little bit low, but take whatever, 50, 60% of that. And that's probably a realistic sale price, especially if it needs work, a lot of work. You could probably go more, but that's what I've been doing. Then give them a range right in that ballpark. Then it's like, okay, that works. That doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, that's the easiest
well,
way
I know.
to
Yeah.
do it.
That's what I'm like. And because then I don't want to, chances are if it works for them, then it allows you to have basically a prior commitment even going out there, kind of like I said in the beginning. And if it doesn't work for them, then you're not wasting a whole bunch of time. Or they say, well, hey, I already have another offer for hire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? So where's that offer at?
Yeah. Why aren't you taking it?
Yeah, exactly. And then you can kind of dive into that. And I was at a house recently in Appleton that we ended up putting under contract, and they wouldn't give me the price at all of the other offer that they had.
Really?
I'm like, you guys are killing me right now. And I was joking with them. I'm like, you guys, a couple thousand more? How much more do you want than that other offer? And they're like, we can't tell you. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure you can't tell me? So I was going back and forth, and then I just gave them a price of where I knew we would be comfortable at. And then they're like, I said, are we higher or lower than the other one? They're like, well, we can't tell you that. I'm like, come on. I said, I'm not changing my number now. I gave you the number already. And he's like, well, you were a little bit higher. I'm like, okay, well then let's just make this a deal right now and
Yeah.
then move forward. And then sure enough, like later that day, they called me and they're like, yeah, let's move forward with the offer. I'm like, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, but I think if you're, and that was a scenario that they were like, hey, we want 200 and some thousand. We were at like 179 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, people are willing to take a discount, but.
Dude, I have one story on a case like that.
Yeah.
Because we've looked at all sorts of buildings between
Yeah.
all of us, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we've looked at storage unit buildings, we've had higher level negotiations,
Yep.
and then very non-sophisticated negotiations with people that just have lived in
Correct.
a place for
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
60 years, right?
Mhm.
So I go to show this apartment building it was an off-market deal.
Yeah.
It was 40 plus units. It was a good deal. I mean, the numbers were okay at the
Yeah.
time. So the guy says, yeah, I'll sell. Okay. So what are you looking to get out of it? Is there a certain price per
Yeah.
unit that you're looking for? Or are you like, do you have an idea?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any idea.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
So,
Yeah.
okay, well, we get to talking. Oh, I'm actually going to be showing a couple people on Friday. Do you want to come through? Okay, we'll come through. This story is just insane. So we're like, okay, whatever. I'll go with
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
We'll go walk it, because how many chances do you get to
Correct.
get a direct to seller off market, like
Yeah.
40 units? I'm
Yeah.
like, we're gonna do what we can to do this deal.
Mhm.
Get there. Does not give me a price. Walks me through units.
Yep.
Only walks me through the best units of the
Yeah,
40.
of course.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we just did this one here,
Yeah.
right? Okay, whatever. So then I get to the end and I said, okay, so what are you thinking for price? I said,
Yeah.
do you have a rent roll? Do you have anything that
Yeah.
you could give me that could do that? Well, you know what? I may or may not have a rent roll in my truck.
What the
What?
fuck?
Bro, go to your truck and get me the freaking rent roll so I can give you a
May
number.
or
Yeah.
may
If you're not going to give me something, I will
I'm just
not,
gonna make something
yeah,
up.
like
Yeah.
if you want me to throw a number at you and
Yeah.
be unrealistic, like I can do that. So
Yeah.
of course he does provide a rent roll.
Yeah.
Then this guy goes ahead and says, God bless him. He says, oh, I need you to give me an offer by 12 p.m. tomorrow. This was a Friday. I'm like, so you jacked
Holy
me
shit.
around all
Yeah.
week waiting to give me something you had the whole time.
Yeah.
When I could have gotten together with my bank or
Yeah,
credit union to
exactly.
say, hey, here's the numbers and stuff. Oh, I need an offer by tomorrow at noon.
Jeez.
And then also to fail to disclose, there was a $300K issue in the parking lot because the water line blew.
Yeah.
Literally a $300K issue
Holy
after the
shit.
fact. So, by the way, it's about $300K to get that done. So it's
See,
just like the shadiness of certain people and the way that they'll retain information.
Yep.
It's like, that's why I think the transparency aspect is good. If I get that impression from people that they're trying to hide shit or
Yep.
they're trying to be a
Mhm.
little bit,
When you can
shady,
sense that.
Yeah.
Oh, you 100%. Then you sit there and you're like, okay, well, I don't have a good feeling about this person or about this situation. I'm going to reflect that in my numbers.
Yeah.
Because the credibility or lack of credibility of certain people will give you the confidence or the lack
Correct.
of that
Mm-hmm.
to do a deal. And I think the other part too is like, especially in our industry, if people are like, this is a wholesale flipping
Yeah.
deal, having a track record and having the right like reputation is
Mm-hmm.
everything in this business. Like people don't understand. And I had a good conversation with Ben about this yesterday.
Mhm.
And I'm like, dude, I like to do deals with my tight group of
Yeah.
people because number one, I know they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
If we contract a deal, we will close that
Yeah.
deal. No exceptions. We're not
Mhm.
backing out of deals. Like with people, they're willing to take a risk or say, I want the highest price,
Yep.
right? I'm okay not being the highest price, but knowing for sure, like if you want a sure
We'll buy
thing
it.
that we will
Right.
buy it and we'll
Yep.
make it extremely easy for you. But it's the people that are like, oh, I'll pay you this. And then they jack you around and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
they beat you down on price 5 times. You leave those interactions. You're like, dude, I will never freaking do business with this guy
Correct.
again.
We got a couple of those in the
What-
past that we've dealt
Oh,
with,
it's
and
Terrible.
I agree 100% because that's one thing we started realizing. I want to say year or two after like I started,
Mhm.
we had started building a huge buyers list, sending all our deals out to those buyers and everything like that, and realizing that it was really only a few, maybe a handful of people that would constantly be buying these properties from us. And we're like, well, why are we wasting all our time doing this? We know what they want. We know exactly like where they're buying everything, where their numbers are. Let's just start sending it directly to those, end buyers, those flippers, because you're dealing with people that you I guess you look at them as being reliable, and they see you as being reliable and running your numbers correctly. You're on the same page, and it makes the whole transaction way easier.
Yeah.
And why not work with people like that? I mean, more times than not, you're not, I guess, getting any better deal.
Well, I think the argument to that point is like, okay, well, you're basically like I've heard the language before, like you're oh shit, it slipped my mind. But you're basically like the marketing hub for the cash buyers. You work directly for them, which isn't the case. But like the opposite side of things is, well, why don't we just blast this out? We're always going to get the highest and best price doing that. But then you run the risk of working with someone who's never bought a property before, which is, it tends to be like on the wholesale list, those are generally the people who are buying the most.
Correct.
Because they see it's like, oh, well, I can make 10 grand or 15 grand or 20 grand or whatever the case is, which is fine. But with that, then you run into this issue of, okay, are they going to close when they said they were going to close? Are we going to have a conversation with the owner because this is getting delayed for whatever reason?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily enjoy that. So I would rather sell to the people that we know, like, and trust, and kind of go from there, and then teach their own on that side. But
it goes back to the same thing. You just want the certainty.
Yeah, exactly.
It might not be the most, but I know it's going to be done.
Yep.
Because otherwise it can jeopardize
the
whole deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Now instead of making whatever it is, you get nothing just because you tried to get a few more.
Well, and I think to people, like, when you have the ability to source deals, then you can really dictate who you want to sell them to. And I think that gives you a little bit more authority, because it's like, hey, don't like fuck around with me on this deal, because then like we'll just shut off the pipeline. And we've done that in the past. We've done that with contractors. We've done that with wherever. It's like, yeah, you were screwing around with us on this property. You're done.
Yeah.
Like we're just cutting you off.
Coach Carter, put him on the bench.
No, it's and it's serious, because Joe had a
not.
Contractor who reached out to him, and I'm like, and he had reached out to me too. And I'm like, yeah, there's no work for you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We've given quite a few chances now.
Yeah.
Maybe later on, down the road, maybe we'll try something. Maybe Carter won't, but maybe
No, I won't.
I might see if anything has changed, or like talk to them. And sometimes just giving some time between, I guess, the relationship and everything like that can help. And then, tell them, hey, the reason why, like, we haven't sent you stuff, like, is this reason. Maybe even like having that conversation. But yeah, when people screw you over a few times, it's like, okay, we're just done. We're not going to keep on going through this constant just circle where I'm throwing out a property, you're constantly knocking it down. Then we're selling it less than what we wanted. And then it's just a constant thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to someone that's a little bit more, I guess, nicer in a way.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And Josh has had a, good example of stuff where, like, for me, us Lodas, we're like 9/11. We never forget. I'm holding on to it for a while.
Us Lodas.
but yeah, where it's just, hey, as long as you be cordial about something might have, you work with someone and didn't go well, or, whatever it might be, unless they like specifically were trying to get you. But
I'm just thinking of like a merch shirt, like 9/11.
Never forget.
Oh god.
But yeah, so maintaining a relationship, and sure enough, other stuff is deal that we're working on right now. It came from something that I would have, I was just frustrated with whatever it might have been. I got someone that, or I should say that I'm working with, on something that hey, it wasn't the greatest experience.
Yep.
But, it can lead to something down the road. Don't just nuke a relationship for nothing, and like things were, various things go around. As long as the person's not nefarious, it's good.
Yep.
It's like whatever deals, because you get caught up in the moment of something didn't work out and you're going to botch some relationship or something like that. It's having a difference versus if there's a repeat issue.
Yeah.
I think, and that's the biggest thing is if you say, let's just say you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. You finally do it, and then it's not a good quality or whatever, and on and on and on. Well, I can't trust you to deliver the product that we need. Doesn't mean I can't do business with you in some other aspect, but when it comes to this, I have to, whatever. And I think that's something too, is just figuring out the right relationships and getting people to understand what your expectations, but like the product that you deliver at the end.
Right.
Is.
And
communication, I think,
that's what I
comes
was
into
just
it.
about to say, communication, and even like bringing up those tough conversations of, the reason why, we haven't sent you stuff, or why we stopped using you is because the numbers kept on changing. This kept on happening. And at the time I didn't have time to like actually focus on trying to resolve this. I had other people I was dealing with. So maybe you have that conversation of why something was happening, if they have a good reason for it, or maybe they were looking at it from a different way and they didn't even mean for it to come off that way. Sometimes just, coming to that realization, you both are like, okay, we both weren't on the same page. Now we know why the other party was doing this and that. At least going forward, we're on the same page. If something were to deviate and you kind of screw up again and go back in that same pattern, now that bridge is damaged, and maybe it's time to go.
I was going to add to what you said a second too. Like, so in that case, right, with the person that Derek was like, dude, I don't want to work with them on this, whatever, right? We get to those situations, and I'm of that same mindset, right? You never know when you're going to need someone, or you don't want to say something or act out in a way that's emotional, or that's like, screw you, dude. You whatever. Put everything behind you. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Always assume the best. Yeah. I always am of that mindset, right? Yeah. You think someone's trying to screw you? Assume they're not trying to screw you until they give you proof that they're screwing you. Then but that being said, at the same point, people will show you who they are. Yeah. Time and time again. You don't so you have to tread with certain people. You understand how they work over time. Doesn't mean you don't need to have any relationship with them, but when you're dealing with them, you know that you have your guard up. You know that this person might not be someone that has my interest at mind, and it is what it is. But, people go through phases, right? Yeah. There's contractors, they got stuff going on in their personal life. They might have extended themselves too much on other projects, or will I give you a chance? Of course. But if you keep, and there's a point I think where guys actually will try to, they'll try to get one up on you. Or they'll test you. They'll say, hey, you know what? I've been working with Carter and Joe for a long time. I think I might throw a little, a $5 extra grand on this invoice.
Yeah. Well, that's an issue. That's exactly what happened.
Kept on happening.
And that's
things.
Well, and it to me, and we had the conversations. It's not like we didn't have the conversations. Like, hey, the first few jobs you did for us, it was $2,800 or $3,500 to do a bathroom. Now it's $7,000. It's like we can't make that work on our numbers
because it messes up
everything. Like you're running numbers off of a certain threshold, and you're buying the properties based upon that. So it's like we can find or source cheaper labor that's similar quality or like kind quality, and make everything work. But when you cannot do that, then it's like that's what becomes so frustrating. Even like I'm not the type of person to call someone out or do certain things. I just won't communicate with them anymore. And that's what it normally results in. So it's like people, and hopefully no one listening to this thinks that, like, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that's like, okay, we're purposely not doing business with them for like, there's a couple that I can think of, but none that we have regular communication with. But I'm like, we don't have to do business together. That's the easiest way to do it. It's like, there's no hard feelings. I just don't think it's a proper fit with us and them, and vice versa. So it's better off just staying that way. And I think you can mitigate the like, oh, well, what about this or that? Or like, why aren't they using me anymore? Or whatever the case is. It's like, hey, we just don't have any work, or we don't have any deals that we want to sell to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you're saying, it's having the ability to communicate it too. Yep. And if any of those people are watching, make sure to like and subscribe.
Exactly.
So you can keep seeing what you're missing.
Hit the subscribe button, please.
But
see all the jobs you're missing.
We had something with, with one of ours that the pricing was quite inconsistent for seemingly the same level, and it would change by the product, not like it gradually increased, whatever.
Same with ours. Yeah.
So we sat down, with them, kind of walked through some stuff, explained to where we're at, and we came up, with a pricing structure that can work for everyone, for the labor aspect of things. And it's great because now we both know what, they know what they're going to make. Yeah. We know what we're going to pay. We know how to calculate it for everything. Everyone's on the same page. Hey, if we need to reassess, later on in the year or next year, absolutely, let's have a conversation. But I just want the consistency for it.
Yep.
And, then there's no feelings or there's no, back and forth on something.
Correct.
It's, hey, if you feel that, the pricing for this based off of what we're asking, maybe there's a project that's more, then let's have a conversation. But a standard is going to be X, Y, Z, whatever. But, and I think like having that style of a negotiation too, where it's not at the job site or it's not referring specifically to one, is probably going to get you a little bit further than on site at the time, because it'll be, you hurt some feelings and fine, then you find someone to finish it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not what I was going for.
No, I know. But
Derek,
people
you're
are
just a total.
But people are soft skinned when it comes to it. Yeah.
There was a time we met with the owner of a property, some of the worst stuff in the area. Meet up with this guy.
I feel like I know the property you guys are talking about.
And we go out, go sit down with him, and he's walking through and whatever. And it was a bigger, he's got, he's got all sorts of units, but a little, nice mid-sized property.
Yeah.
Oof. It needs some work. But anyway, he says what he wants for this price on this. And I just I just stare him in the face and go, yeah, we're not going to pay that.
No, he kind of shook his head like, the guy started saying the price. Derek's shaking his head like, no.
So needless to say, we didn't end up buying that one, but I think we still could. But at the time, because Josh was always like, hey, don't be afraid to push back on, on something, whatever. And he's probably there going, dumb motherfucker, that's not what I meant.
It's not what
but
well, it seems like, and just to get back to this for people listening too, like it seems like you guys are dialed in with your contractors and everyone that you've got now. Same with us, right? Like any of these previous issues are things that led us to the point that we're at now. So it's like the people that have tried these things, either, like you said, they're watching from the sidelines now. You played. My favorite line is, you played yourself, or like, there's some lyric, I'll have to think of it if I can get it before the end of this, but it's like, it was like a Migos song. It was like, dig your own grave, you played yourself.
Exactly.
I put cash on your schedule, and you played yourself because you're not going to get any more money. But either way, like, sorry, I'm getting a philosopher listening to Migos.
Indeed, yes.
One thing that I have noticed, and I think this is super, super important to communicate with everyone on the job, is a mission of what you're trying to do. Number one, the mission. Because if you can set that standard of quality and of the things that you want, like we really had to look at this recently, and we're like, even if it affects our profitability to a certain degree, that we're delivering a good product to the market, and that we're doing, like, we're delivering at the highest level that we can deliver for the people that we've got. Our contractors, if you guys complete a job, it's done to standard, you're getting paid the same day.
Correct.
Like, there's no question. You're not going to get net 30, net 60, net 90 pay. You do it good. It's like that. The same thing is, though, I think what happens, just this is my assumption, right? Yeah. You do a lot of projects per year. Everyone sees that you're doing a lot of projects. They're like, dude, these guys must be making so much freaking money, when they have no clue. Like, this is the thing from an outsider perspective, never to look at someone else and just think they've got it all figured out.
Right.
They have no clue the stuff behind the scenes. They don't know how much interest you're paying. They don't know your holding costs. Just the sheer amount of work that goes into managing a project beyond the actual work. Like, now I've got to, on the back end, I've got to list the whole thing. I've got to do the whole sale process, the dealing with the owner, right? Like, so you need to not only have an idea for them to say, hey, like, this is what we expect for quality, but here's why we need the prices to be cheaper, because it's allowing us to get this back to market at a more fair price for the consumer. It's going to allow us to do more deals, because if we don't make enough money on these deals, or if the numbers don't work, we're not going to be in business.
Yeah, correct. Like, you can't sustain.
You can't lose. You can create a stable income for one or two contractors for the entire year, where they're saying, Joe and Carter have constantly got projects for us. We're never going to have to worry where our next job is coming from.
Yeah. Well, and two, I had someone that was asking, kind of alluding to that, oh, you guys are making so much money. And I'm like, well, like, there was a project last year that we paid almost $100,000 in interest.
Yeah.
Stuff on. Like, that's a lot of riding out months, and, kind of laid it out to, hey, you get paid as soon as the job's done. we might not get paid for 6 months on this. And a lot of things can change. A lot of things come up.
And a lot of bills are getting paid
I'm like,
during that time.
During that,
You probably think we make a lot more than what we do.
Yeah.
And, just like with you, the trade-off of you get paid more consistently for it, we take on more risk. So, there might be a little bit more coming in comparison, but we have to wait. You can get paid every single job, whatever it is, So it's like, again, having that communication, but it goes back to it, just like we don't want people to assume, what's going on with us. It goes back to, you probably just kind of hear out people, see what's going on, as long as someone's not screwing you over intentionally.
Right.
I think that's the biggest.
I know. Yeah, it's just an interesting concept to me. And I think the more experience you gain, then obviously you're going to encounter more things over time and you can learn.
Yeah. And that's like, in terms of this aspect, going back to what Josh was saying a little bit and then on to another point, but you can always make more money, but you can't get the reputation.
Correct.
It's not worth a few $1,000s to get tanked. Oh, I'm going to say I'll pay him this price and beat him up on it, whatever. And guess what? Now I just lost a bunch of deal flow because I tried to save a few grand here, tried to make a big buck on it. But, it's like with going through and doing all, managing all of these projects, like for me, just as, when I got my license for real estate, it was more of a stepping stone of the selling to go full time into the investing. And, I've just kind of kept it going, whatever.
Yeah, of course.
It's a good way to have some income as well. And, you actually end up meeting some good connections through things. But it's like with managing for these properties, this aspect is to go through at some point into development.
Yeah.
Well, you got to be able to communicate the stuff and negotiate and do work on this scale, where you're managing a $20,000-$40,000 renovation, whatever that project is, to going into, adding zeros to that.
Exactly.
Like it's such a great way to be able to learn because you can make some money, hopefully, right? That you don't have a disaster, but you get to make the money, learn, find your inefficiencies, find your weaknesses, be able to create the systems or the skills to kind of overcome that. And that's something that, is really been great with Josh, because both of us can do all aspects of this. And, sometimes we're doing our own projects. Sometimes we're doing them together. It's like, we're pretty open book on it. And that's fine. But it's like for the stuff that is our joint business, we can each do all of the tasks. However, when we split it up, we each do certain aspects of the business incredibly well. Not to say that we know everything and we're perfect, but for what our business needs. But able to go back through it and, kind of figure that out. And, the aspect too with Josh sometimes pisses me off so much. I'll be pissed about something and just complaining about it. And it's like, well, what could you have done to avoid it, dumbass?
Correct.
Like, and I'm just like, no, just go along with it. We're mad about this right now. Yes. I get it. But what could you have done?
It is.
You did something. And I'm like, damn it, it's right.
It is. Yeah, and it's always because
it's
always, it stems from either the lack of communication or lack of expectation set or something along the line. It's like, hey, here's the things that we can control. Here's the things that we can't control. Generally, the things in your control are a little bit larger just through systems, processes, communication, so on and so forth. But like the other things, like, well, we didn't expect to be hit with this large of a bill for this random thing that no one ever would expect.
Right.
Or what I found, especially on some of the projects recently, is like, if person A would have done exactly what they were supposed to do, that we hired them to do, it would have mitigated the tasks of B, C, D, E, and F. Now, if that person A just doesn't do it, which we ran across, then it's like, well, it's creating a shitstorm for the entire rest of the project. Now we're dealing with other issues. Now we don't know what to do, and things are going over time frame, over budget, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I'll share something with you guys after this. So recently I'm really curious about like data and analytics about projects, just because I want to be able to look at a project on a 1,000-foot level at the end and say, where do we do good and where do we do bad? So like recently created a 1-page Google Doc, very simple, but it has line items like this. what was our initial expectation of price?
Yep.
What did we sell it for? What
Yep.
was our initial expectation of time? What did we get?
Yep.
Where did we do well? What do we need to improve on? And then a conclusion. Because if you can mark those various things on a deal, like you're saying, Carter,
Yep.
you can go back and tell exactly where you screwed up on a deal.
Yep.
Did we hold it too long? Did we miss something in the management aspect? You're just accumulating this data that, and also too, I think it's good for your credibility because you can look at your numbers at the end of the year and say, okay, well, here's what we did well. This is an area that we're clearly not
shitty at.
we're shitty at, and then it's like, okay, well, that cost us a handful of grand here. Let's clean that up on the next project and let's continue to work on getting better.
Yeah.
The same thing with your numbers. I think like as investors, you can either become overly or underly optimistic on your price expectations.
Very.
So I think like dialing that in and saying like, okay, was I being realistic here or was I being a little bit too conservative?
Yep.
And that'll play into where you guys can factor your numbers. But yeah, it's good to know that stuff.
And
I think.
No, definitely.
As of lately, I think we've just been, surprisingly, it's been like properties have been selling for a little bit less than what the expectation was, but it could be timing throughout the year. So we'll see. But those are definitely metrics that need to be tracked, especially if you're looking at running a business, because it's all done off of. It's no different than on the acquisition side. It's like, okay, how many leads did we get? How many of those leads turned to appointments to deals, deals to actual profits, so on and so forth. So
yeah,
you know,
constant reflection on just past projects and everything.
Yep.
It also helps you just find those key indicators of, okay, we've been doing this kind of wrong in a lot of the projects, which has been slowing things down. Now let's change that for the future ones. That'll speed things up, and whether it's speeding the process up or getting a larger profit, whatever that may be. But it's easy then to finally determine and figure out, oh, this is something that's been happening. I would have never known that if I didn't keep on like reflecting after every project, like you said. So I think that's a smart idea.
I mean, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
How many projects that you've kind of gone through have you consider, basically for the time involvement or whatever, but broken even or lost money on?
Probably like a couple a year.
Yeah.
Is what it results in. Yeah. So last year, 2 out of 48.
2.
So
yeah.
Pretty good ratio.
Yeah. And
you're still making up for it plenty.
Yeah. But it's still like some of those losses, like I think last year there was like a $40,000 loss. So I'm like, that's a.
What's been the biggest reason for that? Do you
think you value, like the actual value on the resale. Like, and this is one of those things like, can you control it? Can you not control it? Appraisal when we bought it came in at $375. Property sold at $343. So I'm like,
yeah. Was that big house?
Yeah, it was a big house. It's a weird house. So it's like in my mind, okay, can we control the resale value? Not necessarily. Can we control buying houses that are very weird layouts and just not fit the neighborhood? Yes. So I'm like, that's a learning lesson. Yeah. We're not buying any more of those.
Yeah.
So that's what I was just going to ask is, does now that limit it? Because I think, knowing what you buy, because having like, for us is, let's just say, you can have 1 out of 3. You can have a major repair item. So let's just say foundation.
Yeah.
Had to eat 40 grand on it.
Yeah, no shit.
But you can have a major item like that. You can have like no garage, driveway situation, something like that. Or you can have a weird layout. I think you could probably overcome one of them.
Yep.
Unless it's a super.
Your mic just cut off for some reason.
Yeah, Derek was cooked.
Yeah, I know. But
it's like the music at an award show.
I know.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's about time. It's been an hour. So appreciate you guys watching. As always, hit the like and subscribe button. Follow Derek Loda, Josh Jensema, and Joe Viles on all social media platforms. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.